my class on open houses. So a little about me. If it weren't for open houses, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. Because when I got into real estate, I was on food stamps. That meant no money. So anything I could do for free was helpful. And the only way I could go about trying to generate business. So before I was in real estate, I actually used to be in the fashion industry, and at one point in time, I was the brand manager VP for Swatch watches. And so I love, what do Swatch watches have to do with real estate? Well, it's called relevance. And so when I was in charge of their marketing, and we took out a page in People magazine, we were really ecstatic because People magazine at the time had the largest circulation of any magazine in the United States. Here's the problem, or it's not a problem, but here's the handicap with that. It's great to have maximum exposure, but if they're not interested in Swatch watches or watches at all, what's the point? So there was a magazine in New York that was started by Andy Warhol called Interview Magazine. Unfortunately, I think it's now gone bye-bye. And at the time, however, that was the magazine for the art community. And the art community loved Swatch watches. So when I would advertise in Interview Magazine, I actually sold watches from it. Whereas when we advertised in People magazine, not so much. So a good thing about open houses is that if they're coming to an open house, they have some interest in real estate in one way, shape, or another. Either A, to get ideas, B, because they're looking to buy a home, which is our favorite, and C, our other favorite, is they're looking to sell their home, and they're checking you out, and they're just checking out the competition. So those are all really great things about an open house. Doesn't mean that you're always going to meet buyers or, you know, have a lot of business from it, but if you were going to do any activity, it's probably one of the best free activities, other than your time, to do in order to generate business. So let's talk about the 7 levels of open houses. And this is actually in your, Millionaire Real Estate Agent Handbook. So at a bare minimum, putting an open house sign in the yard is helpful. Now, let's qualify this. If you're brand new, thank you, Steve. If you're brand new, likelihood is it's not your listing. So by sitting the open house and not bringing your signs, guess what? You're not getting the extra opportunity to advertise yourself. So you should try to invest, a cardboard sign with a simple metal frame that goes in the little mini metal stakes. They're not terribly expensive, but at least you could start to get your name and/or name and picture out there, or a brand icon if you have one. Now, taking that a step further, sign in the yard is in front of the house. But every house is on a block. That means there's a start and an end and an intersection of some kind. And so at the very least, in addition to putting a sign in front of the property, level 2 would mean you'd put some signs out in key intersections. And if it's a small town, you might be able to go out like rungs on a ladder to the next block if it's a main intersecting with a main thoroughfare, and putting some more signs out there to get your name out there, and also to drive traffic to the listing. Keeping in mind the traffic that's only coming because of your signs isn't likely to be as interested in the house, but that doesn't mean they're not a future seller or know somebody that is looking to buy. Step 3, level 3. Well, there, I already got ahead of myself there. And that is the directional signs at key corners with balloons. So why balloons? Well, they're not the most environmentally friendly thing. They create movement. Movement catches the eye. So a static directional sign doesn't catch the eye as much as a sign directional with a balloon. Now, going from level 3 to 4 is huge, because now you're starting to do lead gen in a much better way. Okay, so level 4 would be flyers the week before, email invitations should you have emails to your clients, pending clients, and also making sure it's posted on websites. So, you know, Maplewood has something called Maplewood Online, which actually is affiliated with several other local townships. You know, so getting an extra advertising out there is beneficial to you if you can. It also gets your name out there. Level 5 is inviting the neighbors. And, you know, the suggestion for a full complete level 5 is 100 neighbors. That's a lot of neighbors. That's a lot of door knocking or a lot of door handle signage. So what I used to do before my open houses is that I had no money, but I did have a computer printer and I had rubber bands. And I went to Michael's and bought a large hole punch that was about 1.5 inch circle. And I made my own door hangers and I went out and I announced my listings and the open houses and invited the neighbors. Excuse me. This is also known as, thank you. This is also known as circle prospecting. You hear about this all the time. And so one of the rules of real estate is that you'll see very often that when a house goes on the market on a block, it's not uncommon to see another house in the block or a block over also going on the market, because when they see what the value of the house is and or if it's sold, they're curious and they say, maybe we should get on the market. Excuse me, sorry, must be allergic to this class. Level 6, get on the phone and remind people. This is not dissimilar from what you should do if you have an appointment to show a property that's made for a day or two in advance. Just assuming because you made the appointment that they're going to show up, bad assumption, wasted your time. Always on the morning of a showing, reach out via call or text. Same thing here. If you invited people, reach out either with a call or a text. If you are shy, there is something, a free app, well, there's free and there's the paid version, but the free app called Slide, S-L-Y, that's an S as in Sam, L-Y dial. That allows you to text someone's cell phone number. It goes directly to their voicemail. So guess what? You don't have to have the conversation if you're afraid, don't like to have conversations. They also have a feature you can do a group text. So if you are willing and able to, you can set up a group reminder, and that would be an awesome way of achieving a level 6 open house. And then level 7, hold 4 other open houses in the area in various price ranges. So the more consistently you sit in a neighborhood, the more you will be recognized by the buyer traffic and the better your business should become. So those are the 7 levels that it's found in the Millionaire Real Estate book that Gary Keller wrote. Highly recommended. Any questions so far? I'll take that as a no, I guess, although everyone seems to have muted themselves. All right. So here are some other lovely things that you can do that are highly recommended. Maximizing your open house lead generation. Meet the prospects in a room and start to build rapport. So when you can, your job when you sit in an open house is not to simply be the door person, meaning open the door for them. If you open the door and you let them walk around, you're really not fulfilling the promise of what you're there to do, which is what, Renata? What is it? Sell the house, right? If you're sitting in an open house, you want to sell the house.
Yes.
So you can't sell the house if you just simply let them in and let them walk around and don't ask any questions, don't build rapport. So you have to have a sign-in sheet. A lot of times sellers want to know how many people came, and it's good for you to have a sign-in sheet because a sign-in sheet starts to build a database for you. Ask questions. If they have children with them, get the children's names. You know, if you ask questions like, do you have a dog? You know, something that it inspires you. It's great. What do you do for a living? Maybe you had a previous profession and you can connect with that. Where do you live? Okay. These are great questions to ask, and it helps to start to build rapport. Building rapport helps to elevate you to the agent of choice, meaning the agent they probably will want to work with, as opposed to simply seeing you as a door person. So there's some other questions here. This market often moves quickly, not as quickly right now as it was moving, but still moves quickly. Have you talked with anyone about what the market's like? Okay. What about here? Ending with a buyer's kit. So if you could create a pamphlet, I mean, hopefully you have business cards with you, but if you could create a pamphlet or a tear sheet, a one-page bio for who you are and what you've done, also give them information about the town, the town websites, whatever you can do to be the source is to your advantage. And so I highly recommend that. And so here, one of my earliest open houses, I sat on a street that I eventually sold the house next door, and the house next door to that, and just recently sold the house across the street. And I had people come in, they scribbled their information on my sign-in sheet. I couldn't read it, made no sense to me. But by offering them something of value, at the time I was operating, and I still own 29 town-specific open house websites, but COVID put the kibosh on that, and I probably, because the market has changed, people are using apps, probably will not reboot them. But I found ways to give good, solid information. So if I was sitting in open house in any of the towns that on a monthly basis, you get the email from Dina that says what the market activity was, I would have some of those sheets printed out on a table next to the sign-in sheet. And I wouldn't just have the sheet there. I would staple my business card to it, okay? So I'd have the sheet there with my business card. Here's the latest information on sales in Maplewood or Springfield or Union or Montclair. You're giving them a value. And once you give them a value, they may start to see you as more than just a door person, okay? Because unfortunately, let's face it, the outside public treats us like either taxi drivers, door openers, and think of us sometimes just like a used car salesperson. And so if you don't offer them something of value, in my opinion, you are a used car salesperson. Because you're not offering anything of value. You're not convincing them that you care about the market, that you know the market. And that's one other thing that you can do. If you don't want to use the tear sheet and you want to be even more recent, what you should know is what's sold on the street, what's sold around the corner. You should have those printouts. Some agents will put them in the property. We'll get to what you can do to make sure you know this, but having some of those sheets would be really helpful about giving information and teaching people about the marketplace. We're not going to do listing agents here. So there's some quick tips here. Smile when they come in, make eye contact. And I don't know why the rest of this is not populating. There we go. If you're going to have a conversation, try to schedule some quality time. Truly listen to them. Communicate consciously. Dig deeper when you can to get more information. Okay. Establish goes and no goes. Be authentic. That's really key. But really follow up. That's the killer on anything. It's great that you get a lead. It's great if you get a conversation. And what most of us do is it's just as good as putting it in the wastebasket because you don't do anything with it. So put them into your database, follow up with a text, follow up with a call. The next weekend, did you want to go out? Did you go out? What did you see? Keep engaging in conversations.
So do you want to put your jacket on?
Can I ask you a question, or I don't know where that's coming from? All right, so some other really specific tips. Number one, make sure the open house rider is there. And it really would be nice if the open house rider is up before the open house. And what do I mean by that? Well, at the very least, it would be nice if there's an open house rider on Thursday, because Thursday people start to think about real estate. And, you talk about the statistics, the yard signage still brings 6 to 8% of transactions to the forefront. So that means there are still people that will notice the listing because they're driving around, which means they need to notice that you have an open house. How do I know these signs work? Because when I have forgotten to take the sign down and I've sold the listing, and I get that phone call, we're here for your open house. So I know the signs work. So something to keep in mind. Familiar yourself with the neighborhood, drive around it, see what else is on the market. Because if somebody comes to that open house and they see signs, they don't know if the house is active, in attorney review, under contract, or even potentially closed, and if the sign hasn't been picked up. So you need to know, you want to be that neighborhood expert to elevate your standing with them. Okay? Call the listing agent to find out if what nuances of the house they should know about. Now, making an appointment to get into the house is critical. Number 3, familiarize yourself where the light switches are and how they turn the lights on and off. I had a listing at the Manors in South Orange, and Ed, when he was on my team, called me and said, "Do you know how many damn light switches are in this house?" And I said, "No." He said, 113 light switches. It took him 15 minutes to turn on all the lights. So showing up at 2 o'clock for a 2 o'clock open house, disaster. You don't look professional. You don't look like you're in business. So you need to know where the light switches are. Make sure you know how to get a light on in every room. Okay. And you need to give the lead time so that way you can finish doing that before the open house officially starts. Because I will tell you, at least 80% of the time, somebody is there before the open house even starts. So, the earlier you can get there, the better off you'll be. What's another thing you want to do when you walk around? Well, bulbs go out. And what's not on this sheet, even in addition to bulbs going out, smoke detectors. There's nothing more annoying than a chirping smoke detector. So if you can make an appointment on Thursday to go to the house, check to see the light switches, where they are, what they do, check the open house rider that's on the property, ask any questions of the listing agent, make sure there are no chirping alarms. Okay, that's really key. Bring the sign-in sheet. Okay, nothing really irks me more than to see it's happened, and it's even happened to me, but buy a couple of clipboards and at least make something looks professional for a sign-in sheet. And we have them available. Keller Williams Mid-Town Direct, I think, has a sign-in sheet for open houses, but you should have something that looks professional for a sign-in. The neater and more organized it is, the more likely that the person who signs in will be neat and organized and give you information. And going back to the story I didn't complete. So this person came into one of my first open houses and they wrote and scribbled their name down. But because I talked them through the house and because I answered all these questions and I was able to tell them what the year-to-date sale price was, what the percentage over asking was, to educate them. When they left, they went back to my sign-in sheet. They crossed out their information and they rewrote it legibly. So I could then follow up with them. That person continued to do business with me because they became an investor. So I did 10 deals and about $5 million worth of business because of an open house. I'm sure you'd all like to have that happen too. Okay. CISs, this is a really critical thing. So when you go on Thursday, are there MLS tear sheets? And I didn't know this for the first 3 years I was in business. When you're an agent and you sign on to the Garden State MLS and you print out the listing, which version are you printing out? The agent version. That is not allowed by real estate guidelines to be given to a consumer. That's why there was a button for client copy. So make sure there's enough copies of the client copy of the MLS printout. If there's a lender then find out if there's enough lender tear sheets. And if there's not, and you're working with a lender, you might want to talk to the lender and say, listen, I'm sitting at open house at 123 Main Street. Can you send me an email so I can print out some tear sheets for you? And working with the lender, okay? Double check to see that there are CISs. Fine for not having a CIS, the Consumer Information Sheet, is $5,000. So you're all here to make money, right? Not lose money. If there was a brochure made, find out if there were enough on hand, okay? Finding out on Saturday, it's probably too late. Safety, adding another person, a mortgage rep, great idea, okay? They can also do the flyers. They may even bring food or snacks or waters. Just make sure that you don't do cookies. I used to do cookies in the beginning, and then I would get these phone calls Sunday night. When are you coming to clean up the house? Trail of cookies. So make sure there are booties or, available if the seller is looking for booties. Sometimes, they've already had a lot of traffic and they're all used and they're disgusting and no one wants to touch them. So that's another thing you can do by going on Thursday. If you can't get a mortgage person, then consider asking anybody to join you, friend, family member, even a fellow realtor, and work it out how you want it. If it's a fellow realtor, then you need to work out the arrangements. So if the person is not licensed in real estate, that doesn't mean they can't help you. They can still do the sign-ins, they manage the sign-in sheet, but they can't talk about the property. They can hand somebody a tear sheet, but they can't talk about the property. You should double check on Thursday and see if the property is showing as having an open house scheduled on the Garden State MLS and on Trulia and on Zillow and Realtor.com. Why? Because sometimes the agents forget. And how would you feel if you drove 45 minutes, got there half an hour beforehand, and no one showed? And then you realize that no one showed because the agent never put it in the Garden State MLS and it didn't populate on Zillow, Realtor.com, and Trulia. So double check. I mean, I know it can be a little sensitive. Just be nice about it. Say, listen, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Listing Agent, I don't see it listed as having an open house on Zillow. Am I missing it? Okay. So we already talked about days off, day of. We already talked about the signs at key intersections, the balloons, okay. The sign-in sheets, the suggestions for local expert. Like I said, you could have a town map, you could have a jitney stop, you could have whatever, town info. West Orange has a great infographic that they produce that you could print out and have there. Once again, staple your business card to it. Sometimes agents are a little sloppy. They don't put a jitney map down or the jitney schedule. So you should know that. And frankly, you should know that regardless, even if there is something in the property. Because, somebody comes to a house, they say, I understand there's a jitney, and you can say it's across the street. You need to know. You want to be smart. When you're done, don't forget to collect your signs and directionals. Okay, and ask the listing agent, do you want them to leave the open house rider, or is there a for sale rider that you could change it out to? Okay. I'm going to skip the following and come back to that in a minute. Questions you could ask to start to engage people in an open house. How did you hear about the open house? It's a great way to find out what they're listening to, what they're using online. Okay. Who are you working with? Or is a way of avoiding are you working with an agent? Are you working with an agent is like spraying me, when I walk into Bloomingdale's, the second I walk in, someone's spraying me with, perfume. Not interested, kind of annoyed, okay? And of course, the reverse is, of course, me asking them where the bathroom is, they get annoyed. So it's all fair in love and war, but when it comes to asking, are they working with an agent? I want to know where to spend my time, because if you're busy enough that you have two people come in at the same time, wouldn't you rather spend the time with the person that doesn't have an agent as opposed to the person who does?
So,
Why do I say that? Before I got into this business, I was selling my former marital home. Two people came in simultaneously. I walked the property with the first one, and I apologized to the second one. As it turns out, the second one didn't have an agent, but they were annoyed that I wouldn't talk to them. The first one was very happy I talked to them. And they happened to like my information so much. You know what? We're going to put an offer on this property. And I was so excited until they let the other shoe drop with our agent. So what did I do? I did a good job, sold the property, but I lost out on business. Okay, so think about that. Also, it's really important to make sure that you let the sellers know when you're done, or let the listing agent know how many people came to the open house, because that's a common question sellers want to know about the open house. Now, what can you do at the end of the day after the open house? So go to number 2 first. Leave a thank you note for the sellers if you want. Thank you for letting me sit here with listing agent. You have a beautiful home. Because maybe they met you. Maybe they'll recommend you to somebody else. More importantly, for the people that came to the open house and registered, regardless of whether they have an agent or not, how do you think you would feel if you are Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, or or Mr. and Mr. Buyer, or whatever, and then that night you got an email with a small picture of the property, thanking them for coming to the house, asking if they could provide, the seller was wondering if you could provide any feedback as to what you liked and didn't like about the house, and saying, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. That's pretty professional, right? So think about doing something like that when you're done with the open house. All right, let's see what else I have here. So this was so having pens, I didn't mention pens before. That's also something good to have, because if they need to be able to sign in, you don't want the pen that you have, the one pen, to run out of ink.
I have a question.
Yep.
So while doing an open house, have you ever encountered someone that was rude or, kind of disrespectful? And how did you handle it?
Without a doubt. Okay. Unfortunately, not everyone has manners. So you handle it as best as you can. What do I mean by that? If you can ignore them, you ignore them. If you really feel offended, you could say, listen, I'm glad you're here at the open house, but I really don't appreciate the way you're answering me or talking to me, and walk away. Your job is to do the best you can to sell the house. You don't want to offend anybody. You deserve to be treated with respect. I don't know why someone would necessarily be rude, but usually it's because they don't want you following them around. They don't want you asking questions. They're on a mission. They think they know better. And so, if it's that kind of buyer, and I just say, I give them a choice. When someone comes into the house and it's the only buyer that's come in, and I don't see someone waiting to come in as well, would you like me to give you the tour of the house, or would you like a tour on your own? That's a good way of, separating the fork in the road from how you can work with somebody or not offend them. Because listen, if someone was walking through the house and you were walking around behind them, that might not feel comfortable for that person. Then again, it's really critical that you do your best to try to keep an eye on things, because people leave things in houses that they shouldn't. I was showing a house the other day. I used to be in the watch business. There was a $50,000 watch in the winder on the nightstand. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this seller is an idiot. I mean, I don't, I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that, but why would you leave a super expensive watch out there for someone to steal? Okay. It's great that now every other house has a Ring doorbell. That doesn't mean they have cameras in every bedroom to see who took it. And even still, you have to track the person down. So, prescription drugs, you know, it's really good to not, if you have any kind of concern, you know, follow, but not stay on their heels. Stay just close enough. If they go to the second floor, then definitely try to go up to the second floor, but you don't want to abandon your post with the first floor. So it is a little bit tricky. That's why I always recommend having another person with you. So, and one of the agents on my team, you know, on occasion, she'll have her daughter with her. Right, Rhonda?
Yep.
So, let's see if there's anything else that I've missed.
Another question, sorry.
House sign-in sheets that I found online, they're not branded from Keller Williams. If you had a magazine with your name on it, some of us use Reminder Media, then that's a great little placard you could print out on brochure paper and fold. See, even this simple information, getting their name, their phone number, and email, need to buy now, need to sell now, renting, currently owned, just looking, like more info, really quick. You know, I would say that in this day and age, we're moving more and more away from paper and into app sign-ins. So, you know, you may want to investigate app sign-ins. There are plenty of open house sign-in type scenarios. I'm currently using Brivity as well. Brivity allows me to get a QR code, and if the person's outside, I tell them, and they're waiting to come in, I tell them you can scan this and it'll take your information and then you can come into the house. And the good thing about that is it goes automatically into my website and my CRM. So that's a nice little huge plus there. Yeah.
So you mentioned about this client with the watch, the expensive watch there, but so what happened? So you saw there, what did you do? Did you reach out to?
Well, I was a selling agent. It was an appointment. It wasn't an open house. If it was an open house and I was there, I would call the listing agent immediately, find out if the sellers are around, and ask what they would like you to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to get a seller freaked out, but when we list houses, which we do a lot, you know, I tell the sellers, any expensive jewelry, including watches, please lock up or take with you. Car keys, don't leave them out. We had a listing, a very expensive listing in South Orange, had a lot of people. And there was a couple that came in that I wasn't really feeling a good vibe with. I followed them around. Nothing happened with them. Right behind them was another person. They also looked really nice and professional. They were scoping out the house. It was purposeful. It was like a decoy. Okay. They came back in the middle of the week. They saw the car keys were hanging at the back door off the kitchen. The door wasn't even locked. The sellers never locked their house. They woke up in the morning, both cars were gone. And they found them both in Queens. And then we saw, once they were arrested, we saw the pictures and I said, holy shit. That was the good looking couple that came to the open house. And I felt really badly about that. And we eventually we didn't lose the listing then, we lost it shortly thereafter. But then again, we found the buyer for it. So we still got paid, you know, as we should have.
Yeah.
But it's very tricky. And prescription drugs. Always remind people to take prescription drugs out of the cabinets. There was a lady who was notorious for going around some open houses and going to people's medicine cabinets and stealing their prescription drugs, if it was the drugs she wanted.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, definitely. You definitely need to people because you don't know what kind of a traffic you have. And sometimes, you know, you can be overwhelmed and you can't not be two different places at the same time.
Right.
You cannot follow everyone around. And then
No, you can't.
Another thing that happens to me is I had a situation with a very old lady. She was refusing to sign the sheets, and one of the showings that was like a line behind her.
Right.
And I kind of like used fact, look, if you don't want it to be contacted, I 100% agree here. I'll put it next to a name, do not always.
Right.
But I need your information. But if you're not willing to give this information to me, unfortunately, you're not gonna be able to walk in.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah,
That sounds like a really good, safe practice.
yeah.
It is illegal.
Is it?
You can, I mean, I wish we could do that. We've talked to Octavio, but it could be considered profiling. Could be
But
considered
she was
age
refused.
discrimination, racial discrimination. And
She
so
was refused to sign, and I said, that, because of it, because.
there's no law that says they have to sign in. You could say, we're still dealing with COVID
That's
and
what
for
I
contact
did.
tracing, it would be helpful. They're still not required. I mean,
Use that.
restaurants made you do it and you did it.
Yeah.
Okay, open houses don't have the same feeling for people because it's an open house. Okay, you're not, when you go into a restaurant, you're going there to eat. Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be there, you're a patron. In your open house, you could be going in for 30 seconds, you could be going in for an hour walking around.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful. Because after that incident that happened, I wanted to buy a portable camera. And I wanted to have everyone sign in so I could record everybody. And Octavio said, here's the challenge in real estate. If you read the rules and regulations, what you do for one has to be done for everybody. Has to apply for everybody. And that's the problem. Like the home warranty. We all have the home warranty for a buyer, the home warranty for a seller, right?
Yeah.
Well, 99% of the time, the person doesn't want to fill a home warranty. But because we presented it to one, and I don't mean they did it, because you presented it to one, it has to be presented to any client of Keller Williams Mid-Town Direct.
Yeah. She ended up signed, and I did put like a big thing, I wrote it right next to it, like it is on my do not call list, and she agreed upon it. But the people that was behind her was kind of like making face like, lady, come on, just put your name there.
It doesn't matter if they're making a face or not, you're doing the right thing. She has a right not to. So the only thing I would qualify again for the contact tracing, it's not just, okay, so that way you could tell us if you had COVID, but what happens if somebody who was here got COVID? Wouldn't you like to know? Put the
Yeah.
onus back on them. So give us information and, I won't put you in an email. You can write, no email, do not contact, whatever, DNC, do not call,
Yeah.
whatever you have to do to,
But then once COVID goes away, so you meaning if someone walks in and if they don't want to put the information, we cannot.
they don't have to. I mean, they're not required by law. So unless the office decides that that is a requirement for every open house, we can't do that.
Oh, wow.
It's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, good to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, listen, can I just say this and not offend anybody? Real estate is like stepping in shit. Okay? It's like until you step in shit, you don't learn at least a third of what you need to learn. Okay, so it's good. I've been in this business 13 years. I'm still learning something new. As you know, we have, deals pending on Arcadia and Sophia. One of the deals is a veteran's loan. So I've done 800 transactions now, lifetime. I've done veterans deals. I've never been asked for my seller to get a veteran's ID. So apparently, if it's new home construction, the Veterans Administration requires the builder to get a veteran's ID. Oh, yeah, exactly. But where's that in the training manual? Where's that when you took your real estate licensing classes? Where's that when you had your training at Keller Williams? Non-existent. It happens as trial and error. So
Okay, all right.
that link doesn't work. I was checking that out. So that's an old quick link that I had. I apologize. Let me see if there's anything else. But I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay. Mark?
Yes? Nope. I guess the other person just shut off. Okay. Let's see here. So this was my other suggestion. I said earlier, bringing printouts of area solds.
Yeah,
Okay, and of course, anything you bring is a printout. So there's software that I use called, from a company called TechSmith. And what it allows me to do is to do a screen capture of whatever's on my computer screen. And it allows me to add text. It's a lot easier than printing out this. It's the same printing cost. If I can figure out how to merge my name and telephone number and put it on the sheet, preferably with a logo, than having to take my business cards and staple it to them, make it thicker. It's going to tear off anyway, but it's still better than not doing it. But have anything you would give out, it would be great to have your information on it.
The picture on it.
Because you're going to be surprised how they may want to contact you. So you want to give them a chance to do so as opposed to, no, it's killing me. I lost the business card. I don't remember the agent's name. She had an interesting accent.
Yeah.
Where's the card?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's another reason why the thank you note is so critical. But the header of the thank you note should have a picture of the property to try to, or a key picture from the property. So it kind of immediately connects them to who you are and where they met you. Like I said, jitney stops. We get this question a lot, and this is a good extra homework question. Ask the listing agent if they know what the utility costs are per month. That's a very common question. Now, do you know that if it's that it's public knowledge, you can call any utility company and find out what the average monthly utility costs are. So you don't actually have to call the listing agent. You can call PSEG, Jersey Power, Central Jersey Power and Light, whatever, JPL, JCPL, and get the information. Okay.
Do you have to disclose who you are, like occupation-wise, or?
I don't know where that came from. Anyway, so
It's
another reason why you want them to, you want, when you're walking, I say, listen, I'm not just trying to use this to market to you, but if there's a price reduction on this house, would you like to know? That's when you're getting ready to leave. That's a great way of double checking your email or their phone number. Because you should hold on to that in case there is a price. And now that the market has shifted, even more, you're going to see a lot more price reductions. So I did an analysis. Renata, you're on my team, so you probably saw that I added something to our weekly analysis. So I've been noticing that every week the percentage over asking is decreasing. The days on market is increasing, a little bit every week, just fractional. But the challenge is that now we're talking about, hundreds of houses being sold. So seeing it go from, from 19 to 18.2%, okay, sounds just like a little. So I did a breakout for Maplewood. So closings that occurred on listings that were listed as of January 1 in Maplewood, closings that occurred from 2/14 to 4/1, a 6-week period, averaged 20% over asking. Closings for the last 6 weeks in Maplewood, would you like to know what the percentage over asking was? Nope.
You went down drastically, right?
Yeah, you should know the number.
Yeah.
Don't go looking for the computer to see it.
You went down.
5.9%.
Yeah.
So basically, a 2/3 decrease in price paid over asking.
But for this past 6 weeks.
The last 6 weeks versus the first 6 weeks of closings,
Yeah.
because the first 6 weeks of the year, the closings aren't from properties listed in January, they're listed at the tail end of 2021. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, did you have an aha from that? Somebody coming into an open house who's been bidding on houses. I keep losing. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I hope I'm not offending, when I say Mr. and Mrs. And I just, I say, well, the first quarter of the year, yeah, we were trending like 20% over asking. Now we're trending a touch under 6. Okay, so who's to say that you're going to lose this time? Okay, let's see. Community issues. if you know anything else about the community, if there are articles on the community. So we have buyer kits on my team. And in the file, there are 4 different articles, because one I wrote, but 3 different articles that were written by other companies about Maplewood, award-winning town. Apartment Nest wrote one, even though, you know, we're really mostly houses. The New York Times, that was the one I was involved with. I have those printed out, and I print out some of those with my business card, or in my case, I've merged it, and I have them in the house because maybe it's the first time they're coming to that town. So wouldn't that be great if you could be an additional source of information about why Union is really cool, why Springfield's a great place to live, that kind of thing? So something to think about.
When the Mark lists a house, it's so neat. When I go there to do the open house, you know, I always get there early, and I already did my little homework on my phone. When I get there, I feel so confident because you have all the information, and then clients really enjoy looking at those things.
Yes,
you know?
they do.
It helps a lot, but if you're going to open a house that you don't have that kind of a display, then, you know.
Well, and here's the reason why. So it's not me per se, but you know, my business has shifted from when I was originally first started, it was mostly buyers. Now it's mostly sellers.
Yeah,
And I know these things really work for sellers. Plus we have a team and we have support to make sure all these things are in the houses. When you build a business with momentum, you can afford to do these things, time-wise, leverage-wise, and money-wise. And they do make a difference. But if I'm a new agent, I don't know what I don't know.
yeah.
All right, and I may not have the time to have everything. I may not have an assistant. I may not have an admin. I may not have another agent working with me. And so you forget. So it's something to think about, that giving them something of value, what the community's about. You know, if you knew any zoning issues were going to be an issue, you know, that's a tough one. That's more about people buying houses. They need to know, like in Chatham, you know, they're pretty tough on zoning in terms of what they allow you to do to expand houses. But usually in almost every town, there's a certain amount of buildable space relative to the lot size. And buildable space is measured in 2 ways. It's the total square footage, but it's also the square footage per floor and the number of levels. Okay, so something to think about there too. So, you know, that's pretty much covered most of what I think is really critical in an open house. When you, on our team, okay, we have this sheet at the end. If you really want to ingratiate yourself and you're not on a team and you want to sit more open houses and you want to impress the listing agent, if you said, how many guests I had, number of realtors that were part of that group that came through, with agents, number of realtors that try it themselves, potential interest in the house, any feedback. This is key. Inventory brochures. By the way, Mrs. Smith, you're down to 2 brochures. You know, they may want to know that because they're going to ask for it to be printed Monday, so they're not caught blind. Nothing worse than a seller calling you and say, you know, you're out of tear sheets. You know, you're out of brochures. It's embarrassing. So this would help to really ingratiate yourself with that agent. Inventory of floor plans, if the booties are low, CIS forms, not that anyone ever takes them, but that they're present. You know, if you're using the agent's directionals, what should I do with them? Do I leave them on the side of the house? Do I leave them in the garage? Or do I take them and drop them off at the office? You know, if you notice anything removed or damaged, did you change out the rider? Seller's disclosure in the house. Well, that's our team because we have a moving truck. And infographics, if you work with Justin Messing, he has an affiliation with a company that provides infographics. So here's the thing, when I talked about the community, the easiest way to convey that information is pictorially with an infographic. It's 1 page. The infographics have a page for schools, a page for the great outdoors, a page for the conveniences, what's walkable, what's close by, and eats. You all like to eat. Me especially. Yeah, well, all right. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's always a work in progress, right? So now I'm going to open this up to any questions.
Yes, Mr. Slade, can I revert back to what you were talking about regarding the electrical company? Like if you call, do you have to disclose who you are regarding the heating costs and so forth?
Yeah, it's public information, so you can find out, you call the respective utility, and they should give you an average monthly cost.
Okay.
Now, there's a little trap here. Let's say the house was a single elderly person who owns it. Well, the likelihood is that the heating cost could be higher because as you get older, you want more heat, but the usage may not be very much. If you are a young family that lives in the house with 3 kids and they're all on computers and on, giant flat screen TVs and, computers, like I always say computers, I'm sorry, and all that kind of stuff, there could be a huge difference. So, you could just relay the information, but say, listen, I don't know how many occupants are always in the house and if it's, higher or lower than it used to be. So why do I bring this up? And it's when I mentioned this need to verify utilities, before I was in real estate, I was selling my former marital house, which was a very large house in Maplewood. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. Beautiful old Tudor. The windows were casement style. That's the kind that swing out as opposed to lift up and down. So much harder to put an air conditioner in. You need special casement style air conditioners. The house leaked like a sieve. If anyone could guess what my annual heating and electric bill was for that house? $11,800. Yes. Now, we had multiple kids, we had a nanny, okay? So, I mean, added to the usage and all that kind of stuff. But when I bought the house, it was just an elderly couple. And they had closed off 90% of the house. They were using 3 rooms. So when I did my search on utilities, it was like this. And then I moved in and it was like, so keep in mind, listen, this is what PSEG says or JCPL says, but I can't tell you how they live. I can't tell you what temperature they keep the thermostat on during the winter time and what they keep it on during the summertime, how many air conditioners they run or not. So, it's a guide.
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
I always learn something new.
So Renata, how many houses have you sold from open houses?
From open house was actually one, and I.
One of your
really
3
good one.
transactions, right?
Yeah.
And you've been on the team for,
Well, I started like basically mid of May, but I really started being very active with mid of June. Or
Okay.
to the end of June, that's when I started doing the open house.
right, so from the minute you started doing open houses, let's call it end of June,
Yeah,
end of July, end of August, and let's say it's end of September.
that's when the close is going to be.
So you have 3 transactions and one of the 3 is an open house.
Yeah. That's pretty darn good.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Open houses works, okay?
Yeah.
Don't assume that every time you sit, you're gonna have a deal.
Right.
But if you stick at it, it should.
And I, from my own experience, I mean, this is my way of being to begin with. I treat everybody with the doubts, like I don't doubt anyone, right? The ability of a purchasing, the ability of a, wanting. I treat everyone with fairness. And the truth is when this lady came to this open house and when she was talking about, oh, I want to buy in very, very expensive towns. And her sister's like, you're crazy and this and that, and the policy between them. And I said, you know what, let's keep it rolling, get your approval. And I kept continuing communication with her. She was very nervous to talk to the lender. She ended up talking to the lender that we work with. And as soon as she got approved, I Googled her to a town that she did not mention, but it was a brand new construction. I knew she needs to see this. And she was really a good, approved really well. Right. She went there. She was the first one to get to the place, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She was already there waiting for me. She left the place saying, this is my house. And I said, let's do the offer. Of course, we had to work through, the offer, but yeah, it was an incredible experience and I'm very happy with it.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Typically, when you have, when you're doing an open house for a listing agent, it is typically, do you work out with the listing agent that lead is yours, or does the?
So anytime you do real estate, okay, and it involves another agent, I don't know, it's funny, I was watching, I'm gonna answer your question in a minute. Mary and I were watching Selling OC. So if you ever watch Selling with the Oppenheim Group on Netflix, you know, those real estate shows, Selling Sunset, thank you. So now it's the same people that opened up another brokerage down in Orange County, California. And this newer agent asked an experienced agent to help her, okay? And then the experienced agent was helping her, but started to get a little uppity about all the questions that were being asked of her and all the efforts that she was being asked to do. Now, meanwhile, the point of origination came from the new agent, not from the experience. But they didn't sit down and work out who's responsible for what. They agreed on a 50-50 split. And apparently in California, you can't list a co-listing agent. Or I'm not 100% sure because the show's a little vague. So the senior agent was pissed because, well, no, she must have still been listed as a co-agent because she was getting phone calls. So, but the first name was the agent that was the originator. And the second agent, the experienced, was pissed. You know, it's my reputation. And, you know, I guess she's probably thinking in hindsight, you know, why am I second on this one as opposed to first? But she didn't work that out in advance. And they go into the broker to complain because the junior agent's okay with the way it is, the senior agent's not. And Jason Oppenheim says, you didn't have this listing if it weren't for her.
Right.
So, to your point, it's the same thing. You need to communicate. What are the ground rules for the traffic that comes in? Some agents, it's all yours. Some agents may want a referral.
Okay.
And you have to decide if it's right or not. You know, on our team, we have a little bit of a weird, not weird, but you know, we feel that currently are in the mindset that if a buyer comes in and wants to buy that listing, then it still returns to whoever are the listing agents on the team to work with. If at least it's first right of refusal, we may still give it back to one of our agents that was sitting in the open house or to another agent on the team. Usually it's, you know, it's either we go to us or it goes to the agents in the open house. But I've sat open houses where, you know, the agent wanted something, and I've sat open houses where the agents wanted nothing.
And who sets that standard? Do I,
There-
as a sitting?
It's a conversation you have. There's no standard,
Okay.
no standard.
Okay.
I've seen it both ways, okay? It's a question. So, Mr. or Mrs. Listing Agent, what is your expectation when it comes to the people that I meet?
And I don't say, well, I don't set that. Well, when they come to the listing, when they come to do the open house, they're automatically my clients. I don't set that. That's
You
something
can, well, you can set that. That can say, well, if you want 25%, you know, I'd rather sit somebody else's open house where I don't have to pay them because my time is valuable to me. So, you know, this is one of those challenges when you're newer and don't have a big business. It's really hard to make the tough decisions that are like, feel like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, okay? But when you have enough business, then you realize you're doing disservice to yourself by lowering your standards, okay? You know, for me, in my opinion, if an agent's sitting in open house, okay, unless they have a team agreement as such, you know, you should be able to sit it for free. Okay, but the difference is by being on the team, when I have open houses, okay, I'm gonna go out to the agents on the team first.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the benefit. So yes, there's an expense, but there's an expense of being on the team anyway. And it's no different in this case. At least on our team. And on most teams. So, and
No,
some
but I-
teams actually like even bigger splits than what we take.
Yeah, but definitely the open house, I think it's a great way of generating.
But like I said, if it's an open house, they have some interest in real estate. They're a neighbor, checking out the market. You never know. But I mean, it's not as if you're sitting in Whole Foods with a sign, I sell real estate, when they're coming to buy food. They're not coming to buy houses at Whole Foods, at least not yet. Yes, it's owned by Amazon, who knows? But you know, it's relevance. You know, relevance is key. So I would much rather spend my time meeting people that have some interest in some way, shape, or form to real estate than people that don't, if I'm looking to do business.
You
Any other
always
questions?
learn- Always learn something too.
Cool. Any other questions, anybody?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you all for attending, and have a great day. Go sell.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.